trial. So we are starting with the AJ Scott trial today. We're going to do this for a few days, and we actually may get through the trial in a couple of days. And then we're going to start with the Donna Adelson trial, most likely coming this Friday. But before we get into the opening statements, to give you a little bit of background on what's going on with AJ Scott was a former state trooper and is now a mayor. I know. What he's being accused of is vehicular homicide of two young ladies that were in a car with two other guys. The two guys in the car, they weren't killed in this accident. They were severely injured, went to the hospital, and were able to recover. But the two girls involved in this case lost their life. State trooper was going down the road, 45 miles per hour zone is what was said, and he was going 40 something miles over the speed limit, so almost 90. Didn't see them coming. They were turning, and the state trooper T-boned them, killing two teens and injuring the other two. All right, so now he initially had a trial for this. It was ruled a mistrial because the defense withheld some information from the prosecution that they say was pertinent and could have been used in the case. All right, so fast forward now, we're 10 years later. AJ Scott, he has become the mayor of Buchanan. I know. So he was fired as a state trooper, then later on became a mayor. Not only was he elected once, he was reelected and was put in office 2 times. And now he's going to be on trial today for the vehicular homicide of two of the victims we're going to talk about shortly, and then obviously injuring the other two. So that's a little bit of background there. Let's go ahead and get into opening statements. As you can see, the prosecution is going to start first. Sound's going to be a little bit quiet at the beginning, and then they'll adjust it later on. I'll fix that for you guys on the front end. Check this out. 10 years later. Yeah.
It's September 26th, 2015.
She's super quiet.
And Dylan drove up to Quentin, all on their way to their friend TJ's house. Now, TJ's grandparents had a nice little piece of property down Holly Springs Road off of Pick Jones. And we get there down 22nd. And Ben is driving because Dylan's truck is broken down. And there's a workshop on the property, there's a lake on the property, there's a cabin there, and they're gonna go do what teenagers do on the weekends. They're gonna hang out.
Let me know how the sound is, guys.
On the way, they're supposed to get food. They're supposed to go to McDonald's. But Ben gets in the wrong lane, and Dylan says, let's just go on to TJ's. So that's what they do. And the guys are drinking things, and the girls are listening to music. And again, they're just there to hang out. Maybe they'll have a bonfire.
I could turn it up. Hold on a second.
But the girls are like, hey, we're still hungry. And they want the boys to take them to kids. They pile back in the car.
About now.
And mine is Quentin. Because it's a small car, and Quentin got stuck in the back in the middle. So he stays with TJ. And the 4 kids leave to go get some.
Okay, good. I'll turn it down.
And while all this is happening, the defendant, who is a state patrol officer, is sitting under the I-20 bridge, just a little north of Holly Springs Road on 27th. And he's sitting there with some officers from Raven PD. And his battery in his radio is low. So he gives it to one of them so that they can charge it. Then a call comes in. There might be a chase from another county. State patrol officers are involved. So he leaves. Maybe he can join the chase. Ultimately, it doesn't pan out. So on his way back, he stops somebody for speeding. And then he heads north. Now mind you, he does have another radio. He is not without communication. So this is not some kind of emergency. And in fact, he's not going to a call. He's not running lights and sirens. But he is driving 90 miles an hour in a 55 mile per hour. 90 in a 55. And as he approaches Holly Springs Road, the kids are heading back to TJ's. And Dylan approaches the turn. It's a divided highway, right? There's a median in the middle. And he's looking ahead of him. and the roadway is dark. Now, mind you, this is night. It's not 11:40-ish. And as he goes to turn, he looks ahead. The roadway is dark. There's nothing to see. And as he begins to make his turn, the defendant flies over the hill at about 83 miles an hour. It is dark. The road is wet. There's obviously limited visibility.
Let's see if we can get this mic fixed.
And as he drives up that hill, he passes 2 caution signs, one on each side of the road. Those yellow signs that you see that say, hey, there's an intersection coming up. And you should actually go 45 miles an hour. But he disregards those. And as the kids come into view, he turns to the right, the direction they're headed. And he realizes his mistake. And he starts to turn back to the left. And only then puts on his brakes. But at that point, it is way too late. And he hits them with devastating force. And as their vehicle begins to spin, Kylie is ejected onto Holly Springs Road. She suffers a lacerated liver and what they call soft tissue damage, and essentially bleeds out internally and dies in the hospital. Isabella suffers a fractured pelvis and what the doctor will refer to as a transection of her thoracic aorta, which is the largest artery in the body. She also has brain bleeding. And she dies on scene before EMTs and first responders are able to pry her from the car.
That's sad, man.
And Dylan is so disoriented that he continues to press down the gas on the vehicle, even though it's up a hill and there's nowhere to go, generating smoke and that fills the air. And he ends up with skull fractures and memory loss and a lacerated arm. And Ben also suffers traumatic brain injury and brain bleeding and memory loss. In the defendant's own words, he tells Corporal Alexander, I went right, but I should have went down left. And when Corporal Alexander asks him, were you running lights and sirens? Were you going to a call? He said, no.
I was
I
just
wasn't going
flying.
nowhere. Now, you will learn that there's alcohol in the kid's vehicle. But you will also learn that there is no evidence that Dylan was under the influence. State Patrol sent a member of their Nighthawks team, which is a specialized DUI task force, sent him to the hospital to see if they could find probable cause, which is what you need to take someone's blood if you suspect that they're under the influence. And they found none. Now the hospital took their blood, Dylan's and Ben's, because of course it's important, right, for their treatment. The hospital will also, the results will also show you that there is no blood, there is no alcohol in Dylan's blood. There is no alcohol in Ben's blood. You are also going to hear that from some accident reconstruction experts, probably more than one. But Will Hartenheimer, who was a former police officer, is going to tell you that if the defendant had not turned right, that this collision wouldn't have happened. That if the defendant had begun braking immediately, that this collision would not have happened. That if the defendant had been traveling the speed limit, that this collision would not have happened. And there are going to be, I anticipate, some other accident reconstruction experts, and they're all going to agree that because of the defendant's speed, he had less choices regarding evasion. That at that speed,
He chose that speed.
every millisecond counts. That he was almost the length of a football field away from Dylan when Dylan began to make that turn. And that he's traveling approximately 83 miles per hour, which is approximately 121 feet per second. Dylan had no way to know that. Had no way to expect that. But at the end of the day, it's the defendant's choices that lead us here, that resulted in the death of 2 young women and a serious injury to 2 young men. He was speeding, he was reckless, and he was killed.
It's true. It's undeniable.
Thank you.
Wow. Okay, that was it. I don't want to use the sound effects because I've got this turned all the way up. Here we go. Shout out to the prosecution. They said, hey, listen, this is pretty straightforward. I may or may not have mentioned this, but this trial is going to be pretty quick. They're saying it should take less than a week, to be honest. Let me know what y'all think based on what the prosecution said. This man going to be in jail, or is he going to be free? We have to see what the evidence shows. There's going to be alleged alcohol use by the teen drivers. We'll have to see what the defense has to say. Let me know what y'all think in the comments.